This is not a message for the faint-hearted. This is a heavenly warning and a spiritual confirmation for those who have been profoundly harmed. If you've made your way here, know that it's a divine appointment. The universe needs you to hear a truth that will anchor your spirit and explain the unseen turbulence that has been whirling around you and the person who has abandoned you. The worst, most disastrous mistake someone can ever make is thinking they can start a fire in your life and walk away unharmed, naively hoping the same flames of treachery won't ultimately chase them down. Allow it to settle into your soul. Your ex did not abandon you in a pile of ashes. They intentionally started a fire, stepped aside, and watched with chilling indifference as your world, heart, and trust went up in flames. And now they're in complete shock and perplexity because the smoke has followed them home, sticking to their clothing, filling their lungs, and clouding their every waking moment. They are either too arrogant or too blind to see that this was never a straightforward split. They were not merely terminating a relationship. They were committing a serious spiritual transgression against someone who was never ordinary. You must recognize that you are more than simply a face in the throng. You possess a unique and tremendous divine energy, a heavenly signature, and something old and powerful deep inside you. And in their spiritual immaturity and negligence, they discarded this priceless gift. Instead of recognizing the treasure they owned, they chose to surround themselves with gossipers, haters, and individuals who vibrated at the lowest levels of envy and hostility. They thought that the cosmos, the vast cosmic arbitrator, was impervious to their betrayal. The fact, however, is devastatingly obvious, and it is a spiritual law. No one can abuse, insult, or dismiss a heavenly gift in their life and expect to be rewarded. Positive, fortunate energy does not flow in that direction. Life, in its complicated and fair design, does not function in that manner. And now, the spiritual cost of their deeds, the karmic debt they incurred, is returning to their doorstep at an interest rate they could never have predicted. This is not just a matter of two individuals splitting up. People grow apart on a daily basis. Partnerships terminate with decency and respect. But what they did to you was considerably deeper and more diabolical. It was a planned spiritual assault masquerading as love gone awry. They didn't just walk away. They purposefully joined forces with those who already loathed you, whispering about you in the dark. They insulted your healing process, laughed at your anguish behind your back, and deliberately sought to replace the deep calm you brought into their lives with turmoil and uncertainty. And in their incredible arrogance, they actually felt they could get away with it, as if karma, the cosmic rule of cause and consequence, had fallen asleep at the wheel. But let me make it clear, karma does not sleep. Karma doesn't forget. Karma maintains thorough, accurate paperwork for all energy transactions, positive and ill. Now, the obvious proof of their decision stalks them like a persistent shadow. Their own feeling of serenity is crushed and damaged. Their concentration has vanished, dispersed to the winds. Their evenings are restless, plagued with a painful repetition of their acts and your absence. Why? The solution is simple yet profound. They are haunted by the deafening quiet of your might. Chosen one, here is where you stand out from everyone they've ever known. You were never merely their lover. You were their spiritual anchor. You were the calm in their storm, the brightness in their darkness. In an act of deep foolishness, they severed the connection that tied them to that holy source. And now they're gasping for oxygen in the stifling quiet, the spiritual vacuum you've left behind. Here is a hidden confession they will never be able to make, even to themselves. They were never really prepared for someone of your spiritual stature. You introduced too much reality into their world of comforting falsehoods. You shined too much light into their dark regions of denial. You represented too much sincerity for their meticulously crafted facade. Instead of summoning the bravery to ascend and meet the high frequency of your energy, their lesser nature took control, and they sought hard to draw you down to match theirs. When that failed, and your light refused to extinguish, they deflected. They cleverly transferred the responsibility to you, portraying you as the issue. Then they fled. They dashed right into the waiting arms of the same mob that had never backed you, the ones who were always envious of your radiance. They stood by, allowing others to drag your precious name through the mud, laughing and nodding as if they were happy of their treachery. Committing a spiritual wrong, however, is not a cause for rejoicing. Betrayal yields no triumph. There is just the haunting echo of that trespass, which now haunts every aspect of their own existence. The repercussions are no longer a distant fear. They are slamming into their reality like unrelenting waves. When they attempt to sleep, they hear your voice echoing in their minds. They see a transient mirror of you on the features of strangers on the street. They can sense your energy in locations you've never visited together. They look frantically for the essence of you in every new laugh they hear, every new touch they feel, but they always come up short. And here's the most painful fact for them. They really believed you could be replaced. However, even the person they raced to, whom they presented as an improvement, cannot begin to replace the immense, hallowed space you formerly filled. This is because they did not just lose a relationship. They lost their protection. They have forgotten the hushed, strong prayers you said for them in the depths of night. They lost the unshakable faith you had in them, even when they did not believe in themselves. They lost the bright, dazzling light you brought to their hardest spiritual conflicts. And that kind of severe spiritual loss does not go away with time. It lingers. It stains. It becomes a permanent feature of their spiritual environment. So, if you've been questioning your value, repeating their words, and wondering whether they ever genuinely cared, let this heavenly truth be the anchor that keeps you grounded. They did not make a simple error. They intentionally took part in destroying something that heaven had provided to help them develop and progress. They were the major writers of the screenplay that described their own demise. And now they are imprisoned, living within the dismal ruins of the very life they constructed with the bricks of treachery and the cement of deception. If these words have already struck your heart like lightning, don't scroll away. This message was divinely intended to reach you at this precise time. If you know in your heart that this was never simply about sadness, but something far deeper and more spiritual, leave it 88 in the comments to mark your enlightenment. And if this message stirs something old and strong inside you, I ask you to help propagate this holy truth. Every like, share, and subscribe to God Connection helps spread this heavenly message to other chosen souls who have felt the same way you have, but have never found the means to express it. Consider planting a seed in this ministry if you are ready to step out in extreme faith and unite with this profound spiritual revolution. By clicking the Super Thanks button and donating, even if it's only a $10 seed, you're not simply supporting a channel. You're making a prophetic pronouncement to the cosmos. You are declaring, I am releasing the past. I am embracing my elevation. I am investing in the light. This act of giving is one of power, and it will be returned to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Stay with me, chosen one, for what follows will strike a deep chord in your soul and make you feel it in your bones. You will be unable to ignore this reality. They not only lost a relationship, but they also insulted something precious. The biggest and most tragic kind of idiot is the one who misinterprets heavenly love and spiritual protection for something mundane and commonplace. Your ex did more than simply end a relationship. They also abandoned a divine gift intended to help them develop and lead a better life. When someone knowingly abandons a chosen one, they lose more than simply their spouse. They willfully enter a whirlwind of repercussions that affect every part of their lives, from finances to health, career to peace of mind. You were never just another chapter in their tale. You represented a paradigm change. You were a gateway to a greater level of life. You were a heavenly beginning, an opportunity for a new chronology clothed in human form. Instead of cherishing that wonderful gift, they treated you as if you were simply another stop on their path of selfish desires. Now, they are always wondering why everything in their lives seems so weighty. They wonder why peace won't remain, why it only comes to them for short, temporary moments before disappearing again. They wonder why their successes seem hollow and empty, and why their blessings and chances appear to be unreasonably delayed or denied. The explanation is obvious to the heavens, even if it is clouded in fog for them. They did not just walk away from you. They violated a spiritual pact that they never had the knowledge to comprehend. When someone connects with a chosen one, it is never just about dating. It's a heavenly relationship, a holy agreement etched in the heavens. And severing that link so casually, so callously, has a very real and severe spiritual consequence. The benefits, protection, clarity of mind, and unexplainable elevation that appeared in their lives while they were with you were never coincidental. It was the direct outcome of your presence. They flourished when you entered their lives because of your high vibrational energy, spiritual discipline, divine favor, and the power of your prayers. You were opening spiritual avenues for them that they didn't realize were obstructed. And yet, they rejected everything. They felt you were too much, too intense, too spiritual, and too serious. They mistakenly assumed they could betray you, vanish on you, or even stand in quiet agreement with those who wanted for your demise, and then walk away undamaged and unscathed. However, it is not how the basic rules of energy operate. Now look at them. Observe from a distance. They're exhausted, restless, and spiritually empty. They hide behind meticulously crafted masks on social media, creating a happy picture while collapsing on the inside. They are acutely aware of what they have lost. They know with absolute confidence that there is no second version of you. The cosmos does not distribute souls like yours in duplication. So, when people question, wasn't it just a breakup? The answer is unequivocal. It is never just a breakup when it includes someone selected by God. Ending a relationship with honesty and mutual respect is much different from executing a wicked act of violence on someone's soul. They didn't just walk away. They went right into the arms of gossip, greed, and the belief that they might discover something better. And now they're experiencing the harsh consequences of ignoring their own spiritual development. Their greatest error was not just what they said or did. It was what they touched. They bungled something precious. They treated a magnificent gem like it was throwaway garbage. And now their hands can't seem to grasp onto anything decent, pure, or long-lasting. And here's the fact that hurts them the most in the middle of night. Some of them knew precisely who you were. They knew you were unusual. They sensed your strength. They just expected you would always forgive, come back, and dull your great light so that they could continue to shine. However, when you ultimately severed the cord, the subsequent stillness became their particular anguish. They were mourning not just your death, but also the loss of the greater version of themselves that you had encouraged them to become. And that, my friend, is the most profound and excruciating sadness of all. This is exactly why their new relationships seem phony and staged. This is why their pleasure seems contrived and unstable. They are constantly reminded, in 1,000 subtle ways, of what they so carelessly let slip away. But, selected one, do not bear any remorse for their error. You were never too much. You were just what they needed. But they were not prepared for the medication your soul provided. And the same heavenly power that brought you into their lives for a season is now forcibly removing you, not to punish you, but to safeguard your precious mission. They expected that breaking you would slow your development, but it accomplished the reverse. It awoke you. It gave you strength, sharpness, and boundless wisdom. They were never the end. They were the unpleasant but essential chapter that catalyzed your incredible ascension. So allow them to prowl on your social media. Allow them to browse through your photos. Allow them to repeat your earlier postings, gripped by a burning need to travel back in time. They did not just lose a companion. They lost a once-in-a-lifetime heavenly connection that was intended to profoundly transform their existence for the better. They handled the blessing as if it were a burden, and now it is solely their responsibility to bear. The most profound hurt of all is not only the betrayal itself. It's the act of giving someone complete, unrestricted access to your inner world, allowing them to see the most pure parts of your soul while watching them mishandle it with callous disregard. This was not a crime of ignorance. They saw your purity. They sensed your truth, even as your own voice quivered with hesitation. You didn't hold back. You provided them genuine love, honesty, and loyalty. And it was genuine. You offered them the blueprint of your heart, and instead of respecting it, they burned it. Not because they weren't aware of its value, but because their weak ego spoke louder than their inner understanding. You did not conceal your love. You expressed it openly, strongly, and freely. They still prefer drama than quiet, mayhem over tranquility. They can't take their eyes off you now. They can't stop feeling you. You are inextricably linked to their spirit. Every new connection they try to build seems like they're just chasing your shadow. Every frantic effort to move on results in a deep and soulless emptiness. Because what they lost was not simply a romance, but a spiritual lifeline. You were not the one being tested in this circumstance. They were, and they failed, not merely in their acts, but also on a deep, hidden spiritual level. Remember this, chosen one. Sometimes you are the lesson rather than the pupil. Sometimes you are the answer to a prayer they once spoke, and when they fumble you, they are losing more than just you. They are losing the potential for a more elevated version of themselves. They were reckless with the riches. They naively believed that access implied ownership. But the fact is that they never owned you. They just lost the greatest gift they will ever have the opportunity to own. They assumed your benevolence meant you'd always remain. They stupidly imagined you would never leave, no matter how many times they strained your tolerance and crossed your limits. But selected people do not beg for affection. When we are not treated with the dignity and respect we deserve, we walk away, allowing our silence to speak louder and more deeply than any words could. And that stillness bears a force from which they cannot escape. This design is as ancient as time. People with a higher purpose, people who possess divine energy, are often deceived by those closest to them. Consider the tales of great, brilliant individuals throughout history. They were virtually always wronged by the persons they trusted the most. It follows the same ageless pattern: betrayal, then isolation, and eventually ascension. Because the cosmos does not accept injustice. Hurting someone who has a divine calling in their life is never an innocent mistake. It initiates a strong chain reaction, not of vengeance, but of divine equilibrium. What was delivered to help them flourish, they attempted to destroy. Instead of flowering, they are now gazing at a bleak expanse of weeds where a lovely garden should be growing. So, when you see them sitting in lonely rooms, forcing phony grins for selfies, or feeling absolutely empty even in the midst of a throng, know that they are experiencing more than simply melancholy. It's the deep, gnawing anguish of recognizing what they really lost. They had something amazing, but they lacked the spiritual maturity to maintain it. And now they're shut out, watching you live a magnificent life without them. You were solid gold. They treated you like ordinary dirt. And now their name is permanently linked to the unavoidable repercussions of that misguided decision. The reality is heartbreakingly simple. When someone is endowed with something that others spend their whole lives hoping for, real connection, true love, divine energy, and then discards it with such arrogance, the universe does not sit silently. It replies. They did not spit on your value since it wasn't sufficient. They did it because their pride and ego told them they didn't need to appreciate it. However, the chilling ramifications of that decision are hunting them down, cold, heavy, and cruel. When you handle gold as if it is worthless, you lose more than just the gold itself. You welcome an all-consuming emptiness into your life. They did not just walk away from a decent person. They walked away from someone who had been divinely sent to be their calming presence in the midst of upheaval, their anchor in the storm, and their quiet guardian in spiritual conflicts they were unaware of. You were the steady, unnoticed voice that bolstered their confidence. You were the silent prayers that protected them as they walked blindly toward a cliff. However, since you did not demonstrate your spiritual force, they misunderstood it for weakness. They mistook your boundless mercy for ignorance. They assumed your unfailing commitment meant you had no standards. They couldn't see the great power it needed to love the way you did, or how you silently and alchemically transformed your anguish into knowledge. So they pushed. They experimented, naively assuming you would never depart. However, selected ones are not designed to remain where they are not respected. You were never designed to battle for a place at a table that did not value your contributions. You were intended to create your own empire. And as you went away, everything changed. Initially, the stillness was quiet. However, it gradually became loud enough to haunt them every moment. The career they used to boast about no longer seems as gratifying. Those frivolous flings they used to flaunt about cannot compare to the depth of tranquility you provided. The alleged enhancement they believed they discovered lacked substance and spiritual weight. They are now surrounded with noise, yet they are desperate for genuine connection. And you? You're healing. You're growing. You're silently blossoming into a more powerful, radiant version of yourself, while they're trapped in the chaos they caused. Every time they scroll and see your face, every time someone casually says your name, every time they are reminded of what they had and what they lost, it burns. The recurring discomfort in their chest is not coincidental. It's the crushing weight of their own decisions. It wasn't simply heartbreak. This was spiritual battle. Some betrayals do not result in shattered hearts. Rather, they are planned setups. Sometimes bad energy that cannot directly affect you must operate via someone close to you. This was not just immaturity on their side. It was an infiltration. While you were pouring your pure heart into creating love, they were seated at tables with individuals who secretly longed for your demise. They did not blink when your name came out in a bad light. They didn't protect you. They leaned in. They laughed. They agreed. And the depth of betrayal was more than you could perceive at the time. You believed love meant protection, but what you didn't know was that someone close to you was being used as a conduit for the same energy that was attempting to shatter you. They let gossip and envy speak through them, not because they couldn't see your brightness, but because it made their own shadows seem uncomfortably dark. Instead of rising to meet you, they fell to the level of others who were intimidated by your radiance. This was not a confusion. It was not a difficult split. This was a spiritual onslaught masquerading as love. You weren't just attempting to love them. You were also trying to heal them, pray for their progress, and support them throughout their self-inflicted storms. You believed that your great force could repair what was broken in them. But the reality struck you hard. They were not being brought down by mistake. They were used against you. They'd already opened the door, let the poison in. Did you notice the shift? Their remarks became colder, with sharp small barbs, creating emotional distance and deceptive mind games. That was not coincidental. It was the result of all the wrong voices pushing in on them. They attempted quiet. They sought to disappear. They attempted to spread confusion, all in the hopes that you would shatter yourself while attempting to make sense of their crazy conduct. What they never thought was that you would not be standing alone. You were shielded, protected, and encircled by a spiritual force much more powerful than any bad energy they had allied with. Heaven heard every murmur against you in the darkness. Every fabricated story spoken behind your back was tallied, and the quiet they believed would destroy you. That was the moment the cosmos started to tilt dramatically in your favor. They are now sitting in the storm that they contributed to generate. The chaos they left behind has now wrapped around them like a smothering blanket. The devastation they created is now affecting their own lives. Nothing flows for them now. Joy doesn't feel genuine. Peace will not last. And every tiny victory slips through their fingers. Because when someone works with darkness to bring down the light, the darkness does not just evaporate after the task is completed. It leaves a taint on everything it touches. And the worst fact of all is that they did not just lose you. They squandered their sole opportunity for meaningful, long-term reform. You represented their chance. You were the one person who could have changed their whole path, the mirror they didn't want to look into. But instead of rising to the lovely image you provided them, they destroyed the mirror, leaving nothing but broken shards, phony tranquility, and haunting memories of something true they will never experience again. Your presence was a godsend, a blanket, and a shield. However, they insulted the same hand that held their lives together. Some individuals not only lose benefits, but also offend the source of those gifts. And then they have the arrogance to question why life hits them so hard the minute you go. They chuckled as you sobbed, believing you were about to shatter. But you weren't breaking. Self were giving birth to a new self. The snake chuckles when the eagle remains quiet. unaware that stillness is how the eagle hunts. They saw your pain and misinterpreted your tears for weakness. They felt strong seeing you doubt yourself, as if your struggle was their accomplishment. They rejoiced in your agony. They assumed your quiet signified loss, and that your sadness was the end of your narrative. But they didn't see that you weren't breaking down, you were evolving. You weren't losing, you were struggling. That agony was not the end of your journey. Rather, it was the first step toward your rebirth. Each tear you shed was a liberation. Every restless night was a cleanse. Every moment of fury or despair fueled your spiritual transformation. You weren't disintegrating, you were breaking free. They believed they had destroyed you, but in actuality, they started the fire that would propel you to unprecedented heights. The method they derided became the springboard for your success. The grief didn't weaken you, it made you stronger. It didn't kill you, it awakened you. Now, with clean eyes, you can view the games. You can sense the changes in energy. You understand your own power. They can no longer touch you. The same people who derided your suffering are now watching from the cheap seats on the outside, recognizing much too late that what they saw was not your breakdown, but your wonderful rise. This is a fresh beginning for you. You have progressed spiritually as well as outwardly. You have changed from the inside out. You're no longer bending to fit in. You no longer shrink to make others feel larger. You have totally and unashamedly embraced your power. They are well aware of this. They see it. They sense it. They understand they can no longer contact you. That hurts them more than anything. Not because you are punishing them, but because the divine link has ceased. The energy has moved, leaving them with nothing but a hollow ghost of what they once possessed. A replica that can resemble the exterior but will never be able to reach the soul. Let us conclude in prayer. Dear Father, I pray for the ongoing development and strengthening of my faith. Help me to believe in you even when empirical proof is lacking. Let me believe in your eternal presence, knowing that you will never hurt me, for your plans for me are for success rather than harm, to provide me with a future and hope. Thank you, merciful and everlasting Father, for consistently hearing my voice. I give my prayer and my life to you in Jesus' strong and conquering name. Amen. Thank you, Chosen One, for your affection and presence. If this message spoke to you deeply, please show your support by loving this video, sharing it with those who need to hear it, and subscribing to God Connection for more divine messages. Please share your own transformational experience in the comments section below. Your story might be the thing that inspires someone else to keep going. Remember that your assistance, in whatever form, allows us to continue this critical job of disseminating light and truth throughout the world. Keep shining brightly and face your fate with confidence. We'll see you next time. Best wishes to you.